Video Game Champion is a real love letter to the retro games of yesteryear. So today, with insights from the designers, we'll be exploring the in-jokes and references that fill this fantastic tabletop board game. Hi, I'm Julian from BoxedMeeples, and I've fallen in love with this new board game from Arcane Wonders called Video Game Champion. Now, many times we see board games that say they're video gaming. Sometimes it means they're based on an IP from a video game, but more often than not, it means they have blocky graphics, a pixelated title. Some will include the phrase like insert coin, press start and power up, and their player boards will be consoles and the most generic of games. But this one is very different. It's clear that the designers of this game, Patrick and Andre, really do know what it was like to grow up in the early 90s, the late 80s. For around 40 years, retro video gaming, or just video gaming as we called it, has been a big part of my life. Throughout the 80s and 90s, every spare minute I had, I would spend playing video games. Then, as a grown-up, I started to write about 16-bit video games for websites and books and magazines. Now, I've got a collection of hundreds of different Super Nintendo and Sega Mega Drive games that would make my younger self giddy with envy. The designers of this game had a similar childhood to me, it seems, and like the best video game designers, their inspiration came from their childhood. I had the idea for this game after researching Shigeru Miyamoto, creator of Super Mario. I read he was inspired by his childhood adventures in caves to create The Legend of Zelda. The same thing happened to the creator of Pokemon, who collected bugs when he was a child. But designer Andre hadn't been on bug collecting adventures in his childhood. I started to think about what I did as a kid that could be turned into a board game, and was frustrated because I spent all my childhood playing video games. Then the idea sparked. It's not very often that you find a board game that feels like it's designed specifically for you, but as I play through Video Game Champion, I smile as nostalgia embraces me like a warm hug. In this tabletop game, your goal is to accumulate points by playing video games. To do this, you collect tiles from a central action grid. Each time you get one, you also do the action that shares the tile's row or column. But to get the video games to play, you've got to visit rental stores. Or you have to promise your parents that you'll do all your homework and chores if they just buy you the latest hot release. Yes, IOUs are actually a currency in this game. Each video game you get has commands that you have to input by playing the command tiles you've accumulated. These commands might be sequential runs of numbers, or require you to play numbers of tiles of the same type, or by laying down pairs or triples of the same number. You can complete a fraction of the sequence if you just want to play the game, but to truly beat it, you've got to complete the entire run of inputs in one go. To beat the game, you can also buy magazines, and much like the ones that are available at the time, these give you cheat codes. Let's not forget that this was a time when the internet didn't exist, so if we were to get insights into games and how to beat them, we actually had to look at things printed on paper. While trying to beat as many games as possible, you're also aiming to fulfill objectives by dabbling in a bit of order fulfillment by filling out password sheets. I really love this password sheet. It feels like something that could have been found in my bedroom back in the day. It's scrawled on a page from a school exercise book, almost as if someone has told me a cheat code that I've scribbled down in the playground. Everything about this board game feels like a loving nod to those moments, echoing memories of video games gone by that are now more than 30 years old. We created each game's cover as if we were making it for a real video game. We really thought about what the gameplay would be like and made it into a briefing for the illustrators. Buccaneer Deer, for example, is a platform game with ship battle strategy sections between levels, inspired by ActRaiser. As you flick through the games you're playing with, it becomes immediately obvious what the game the designers were basing this on actually is. So, for example, this one, Meow. It's pretty much Sonic the Hedgehog mixed in with a bit of Pikachu. Then, of course, we've got Gadget Man, or Mega Man as it probably is, mixed in with a bit of Bionic Commando. Bounty Huntress? Who can we imagine as that? That's probably Samus Aran from Metroid. Basketball Blasters, or as it probably was known back in the day, NBA Jam. Detroit Disorder. Begins with 2 Ds, a bit like Double Dragon, or is that Streets of Rage or Final Fight? Space Disco. Now, that also might be Space Channel 5. The Undefeated Master, or Kung Fu Master. Turbo Throttle, or also Turbo Outrun. Primeval? Looks a bit like Primal Rage, particularly as it's a fighting game. Now, if we establish that Meow was Sonic, then Meow Racing is probably Sonic Racing, or more likely Mario Kart, but they're wise to avoid at Nintendo for the slightly litigious consequences. Werewolves of Dracula. This seems familiar if you've ever played Castlevania or Ghouls and Ghosts, and I also think it's really exciting that this one is rated hard, much like the Ghouls and Ghosts games were back in the day. We needed to get all the flavours of games that were popular in the 90s without stepping on any copyright issues. So we went deep on the concepts. Most of them have more than one inspiration. But familiarity with that video game culture goes far beyond just emulating box covers. There are so many nods throughout this game. There's a starting game that everyone gets, much like the fact that a video console used to come packaged with a game when you bought it. And what colour is this cartridge? Purple. But not just any purple. It's the same purple as the original Game Boy Advance. The icons for tokens you collect have 4 circles. This just so happens to be the same colours and in the same distribution as the buttons for the controller on the Super Nintendo in Europe and Japan. The characters you play as all look like 16-bit sprites lifted off that old-style telly. We have a Sonic Pikachu fusion, Capcom-style protagonists, and even a pink hero who could be a Pokemon trainer. And she's got DS on her hat. A thumbs up to Nintendo's DS console, perhaps. As you flick through the instruction books to learn how to play this, you can't help but notice there's a white border around it. An artistic choice? Perhaps. Or more likely a reference to Master System games that had this very same white grid behind the artwork. More modern games get referenced too. Some of the achievements are called the Master of Action, the Master of Platforming, the Master of Adventure. Although, of course, you never have to worry about becoming the Master of Unlocking. Video Game Champion is a tribute to a time some of us lived through. We aim to capture the essence of 16-bit era games because of the magic those worlds held in our young minds. As I sat down with our family to play this game, our experience of it was continuously interrupted by me having to explain why I was constantly smiling. Our children have grown up in a time when playing video games is different. They now have hundreds of games between them on apps and kind of digital platforms. They'll never know what it's like to only own a handful of games and get to know them from playing them over and over again, that they know every single tiny facet about them. I even had to explain the idea of renting games, as to them, if you want a new game, you just go on some sort of digital store and pay money and download it. The concept of driving to Blockbusters, borrowing a game, playing it for a few days and then having to drive all the way back to return it seemed really utterly bonkers to them. The concept of cheat codes also seems somewhat alien to a generation that have come up with in-app purchases and pay to win. So do I only love this game because of the culture it so beautifully pays tribute to? Well, no. Strip off all that theme and you'll still have a great combination of tableau builder and worker placement. Like so many of the best board games, it's quick to get going and to play with subtle play choices and cleverly interwoven mechanisms. We set out to create a medium to light Euro, with rules simple enough for newcomers to enjoy, yet deep enough for more seasoned players. The learning curve to master the game may not be immediately apparent in the first few plays, but it's there, offering layers of depth to uncover. And of course, if you know why I'm blowing into this cartridge, I promise that you are who this game is aimed at. Yes, we did blow into the cartridges, and I can swear it worked at the time, even though they say it doesn't work nowadays. Of course, if you want to get hold of a copy of Video Game Champion, a good place to go is your friendly local game store, which may or may not also sell video games. Our friendly local game store in the southeast of England is actually Chaos Cards, so if you're in that area, pop in and say hello. And of course, if you're not in the area, don't worry, they have a fantastic website, and in the description you can find a discount code that will give you a little bit of money off at the checkout. But what was your favourite game as a child? Do let me know in the comments down below, and does that seem familiar if we're playing Video Game Champion? What memories do you have of playing these games in the 80s and 90s? Of course, if you're new to the channel, it would be really fantastic if you subscribed, like this video and join in the discussion down below. As always, thank you so much for watching.